I asked my viewers to submit their scariest stories, and today I'm going to be reading them while playing Minecraft. This one is titled, My Mom Was Possessed. This is a story that nobody could ever expect. Hell, I didn't either. Let me give you the backstory. I think I was about 7 years old, maybe 8, but I was young anyways. My mom struggled with drug and alcohol abuse for a while, so I was used to kind of a strange behavior. However, one day, I think it might have been mid-October, we were watching a horror movie together as a family, and while we were watching, she is drinking. This is where it all goes wrong. The movie we are watching is about a girl going to church and being possessed, and I guess seeing that made my mom act up, and she started going crazy. She was throwing stuff around the room, screaming, kicking, talking to the walls, and my brothers attempted to calm her down. We shut the door to that room, and I was crying in the hall. As I am in this hall, I hear a buzzing sound, and she grabbed a drill and was about to drill her head. This was traumatizing as a 7-year-old, but we managed to calm her down. She then sat in this chair in the middle of the room, rocking an imaginary baby, saying she was the devil, here to take me for misbehaving, because I was crying. And she asked me to hold her hand to save her. My brothers were also scared, so they pushed me to her, and I was freaking out. This definitely was my most horrifying, traumatizing memory, and this is the first time it's been brought up since it happened. A whole 12 years later. Anyway, after I held her and she eventually calmed down and forced us to rewatch the horror movie from the start and was kind of rocking back and forth as if the devil was leaving her body. Don't worry guys, she's been clean for about 10 years and regrets these moments, so it's all good now, but definitely horrifying, Lamau. Man, ugh. See, this is a real horror story. Your mom being under the influence, straight up abusing drugs and alcohol, and then attempting to drill her own head? Like, as a 7-year-old, I can't imagine, dude. I can't imagine the horror you must have gone through. I'm so sorry this happened to you and your brothers. I guess this kind of just serves as a cautionary tale of just be careful of alcohol and drugs, man. Based on what you're describing here, she was straight up hallucinating. I don't think it was just alcohol. She was probably on something else, too. Like, it straight up sounds like a bad acid trip. That said, I hope that memory doesn't continue to come back and haunt you all the time, but thank you for sharing. This one is called Near-Death Experience. In physics class, we built a small electric motor that ran on a battery. I thought it was cool, so when we got to take our motors home, I kept running it. At some point, the battery died, and for some reason, I decided to stick the 2 wires that normally connected it to the 4-volt battery into a wall outlet. Okay, that is a big no-no. That is not something you want to do. The moment I kickstarted the motor by giving it a small push, there was a super bright flash that almost completely swallowed my hands. Luckily, the thin connectors burned through, so I didn't get hurt. But for context, our outlets have 230 volts, which can easily be lethal. Luckily, it hasn't impacted me at all, really. Not physically, nor psychologically. Yeah, guys, please don't stick metal objects into wall outlets that normally need to be powered by something else. That is quite a terrible idea. This one is titled, Someone Jammed a Nail into His Forehead. Okay. This story is real. I was there. So I was in preschool, right? And in the basement, we had a room to build with wood and stuff. So basically one of those woodworking classes, probably, I'm assuming. One class was down there, and I was up in my classroom doing math. Suddenly, I heard the most horrific scream ever. It was pure panic, horror, and agony mixed into one scream. He was rushed to an ambulance, still screaming, and later I got told that his friend held a nail to his forehead and gave him a hammer and said, can you get like really close to the nail but not actually hit it? So that moron did it and jammed the nail into his skull. He probably didn't know about the momentum. Anyways, I never heard of him again. Okay, basically what this guy is describing is that this kid straight up held a hammer and a nail up to a kid's forehead and then smashed it while trying to get really close. Why? What could possibly lead to this being a good idea? What could you possibly be thinking? This is like textbook 101 of what not to do with a hammer and a nail. Like, this is the example they give you on those like little advertisements of what not to do. Okay, I can't believe I think I have to say this, but please don't swing hammers at people. This one is called Fighting with My Own Father. To start this, I'm going to give some pretext as to why this is the most horrifying story. My father is 6 feet 7 inches tall, 250 pounds, a semi-truck mechanic, and an alcoholic with rage. We'll call him Dave for this story. With that context out of the way, here's the story. I was 15 at the time. My father, his girlfriend at the time, and my best friend, since we were 11, were in the shop, working on a race car. The race car that I was going to be driving and had driven previously. He had been drinking quite a bit already, and we got into a disagreement about a part of the car. We both wanted to do the modification a different way, and he went on and started without asking me how I wanted it. That obviously pissed me off, and we were in each other's faces. Well, as in his face I could be, only being 5'9" and 170 pounds at the time, Without my knowledge, my best friend had started recording in case my father hit me. It had happened multiple times before. His girlfriend noticed that he was recording and said, "Dave, you need to stop that, Lit is recording." That got his attention off of me and onto my best friend. He was yelling at him to give him the phone. I was trying to tell him to back off of my friend. He didn't listen and went to grab my friend. I wasn't going to let that slide. Before he could grab him, I punched him hard in the face. He grabbed me and threw me across the shop. I got back up and gave him 3 more hits to the face before latching onto him and bringing him down to the ground. He fell on top of me, where I continued to dig my nails into the back of his neck as hard as I could. It took my friend dragging me away and his girlfriend getting between us to stop the fight. I don't regret what I did, and I wanted to do it for years already at the time, but it was damn well horrifying to stand there after the fight and watch blood trickle down his face. Someone who was supposed to live and protect me. It was one of the only times I have been left physically shaking for over an hour afterwards. I left with a couple of bruises and a busted open elbow from when he threw me. I was told by my aunt, who found him in the bar the next day and said he had a black eye, busted lip, busted nose, and deep marks in the back of his neck. A lot of people congratulated me for finally kicking his ass, but it's still one of the most traumatizing and burned into my brain nights of my life. That concludes my story, and if it makes it into a video, thanks for reading it. Damn, man, that is deep. First of all, getting the courage to basically fight your bully, because your father is basically a bully in this case. I mean, he's an alcoholic who's, I guess, not listening to your wishes and has been violent towards you before. Now, I'm not necessarily condoning violence, especially if it's towards like a parent. There's like very few situations where I'd say, okay, you should have hit him here. In this particular case, it's kind of shaky because he's going to go grab your friend who's not part of your family, right? So there's a very domestic, strange issue here, like of what's right and what's wrong. Now, me personally, I don't know if I would have tackled this situation like this. I think fighting your dad is going to cause issues down the line. And we're, of course, missing family context overall. But it seems like this guy is a bit abusive towards you. And sometimes those types of people need to be taught a lesson. I'm more so thinking of, is it really worth it for you in the long run? Like how this is going to affect your relationship with your family and other things in your life with your dad. So, I don't know. Good luck. Hopefully this didn't turn into something 10 times worse later down the line. But yeah, this one is called Unwell Hospital Patient. I've had a toe infection for a few months now, which doesn't want to go away. A few weeks ago, I decided to go to the hospital to get it checked out. I was guided to wait in a vacant room while waiting for the doctor to arrive. The door was left wide open. After maybe 40 minutes of waiting, leaning against the hospital bed and scrolling on my phone, trying to find a good video to watch on YouTube, I glanced up at the door and saw a brown-skinned, hairless, eyebrowless, and stone-cold-faced lady slowly walking across the hall. She was only wearing a hospital gown and was completely alone. I was pretty confused, but before I could look down at my phone again to try and mind my own business, she did a double take where she glanced in my direction, then forward again, and then back at me. It genuinely seemed like she was staring straight into my soul. She started very slowly walking towards me, and I immediately regretted having accidentally caught her with my line of sight a few seconds earlier. She approached me very closely, and after being just a few inches away from me, slowly started reaching for what I first thought was my neck. Even though my facial expression was completely neutral and composed, I was internally screaming. I was wondering if she was about to try and strangle me or something, because you really don't know what these people are capable of. But she proceeded to lightly press her hand over the top of my phone and judgmentally look over at what I was doing on my phone. I was still on YouTube and was pretty embarrassed to have some videos about murder cases and lewd content on my front page. My fear went into confusion and embarrassment. I felt like she was some sort of an agent sent to check on what I was up to on my phone and make sure it was safe for work or something. Bro thought the FBI agent was coming at him. Like the hospital gown version of Agent 47 being your FBI agent is kind of crazy. Anyway, she looked back at me with the same blank expression and began slowly walking backward, turning around after a few steps, and then returning to the hall, presumably to continue her journey of aimlessly wandering around the hospital. She was probably on some meds, and I don't know why no one was there to watch her. After a minute or so, I heard a lady come out of a room and tell her something along the lines of, "No miss, your room's over there." And that was that. The whole thing felt straight out of a horror movie. The way she walked was so ghostly and calculated, it really made me feel uneasy. Dude, the thing with hospitals is that you really never know the mental state of anyone that's coming towards you, especially when they're wearing a gown. I feel like I probably would have had a similar reaction to this guy. I don't think I would have let her get near me as much, especially if she looks like she's about to grab my fucking neck. But, you know what I mean? I think most of us wouldn't really know what to do in this situation. But anyway, thanks for sharing. This one is titled Real Life Skeleton. Me and a few of my girlfriends went out for trick-or-treating. A bit old for it, but hey, free candy. We were walking around our neighborhood, Not the USA, so not as crazy decorations, when we saw a really decorated house with a giant plastic skeleton and a small one that looked really realistic, like movie realistic. And we thought, hey, why not touch it? So my friend goes forward to touch it. As she is about to touch it, an old lady opens the door and says, quote, "You better not touch that or I'll call the cops," end quote. And as teenage girls do, then we touched it anyway. And it felt really weird, like not plastic, but softer, but still harder. And it smelled sweet. So we called the cops because we've heard dead humans smell sweet. Turns out it belongs to a dead man in his 40s who was this lady's son. Oh, brother, imagine your mom killing you and then hanging your skeleton out as a decoration for Halloween. It sounds like one of those threats that your mom makes at you when you've been bad, and she's like, if you don't stop that, I'm gonna put your skeleton out with the Halloween decorations. Like, doesn't that sound like something a pissed off parent would say? I think it does. But yeah, god damn, that's crazy. Thank you for sharing. This next one is titled The Weird Ass Man. When I used to live in my old house, we had a backyard that went into a forest. Since I was young and curious at the time, my sisters and I went into the forest with no training at all. It started normal, with just normal sounds and crickets chirping. It got quieter and darker. We were going to go back home but forgot where it was, until we saw this old man. We asked the man for instructions because we had the survival instincts of a fart, and it turned out that the man knew where we wanted to go. I don't know how, but he gave us directions and we followed them. When we got back home, I could see the old man hiding behind a tree in the distance. I thought nothing of it. We went to bed that night and I had a nightmare of that man in my dream. He was standing out my window with an axe. In the morning, I got an Amber Alert for a missing child. Turns out the guy we saw was running from the police at the time and was wanted for murder. We shortly moved to a different province after that encounter and never came back. Love the videos and sorry for the long story. Dude, like, you could have been dead. This is like one of those things of like stranger danger. Like I don't know if I'm walking into a dark forest and asking this guy for directions. That said, if you really don't have another choice, I guess what would you do, right? I mean, not everyone... Like, I'm not going to just assume a random guy in a forest is a serial killer, but I guess there's always a chance that he is, quite literally. Damn, dude. Thank you for sharing. This one is titled, I Went Into My Son's Room. Bro, you spelled went with an H? One day, just like any other, I went to put some clothes on my son's bed, but as I came in, I noticed a strange smell. But instead of being semen, I already knew he was a gooner. You're okay, this is not a real submission, and I'll explain why. It was an odd smell closer to blood and saw him repeatedly stabbing his best friend. They had a friendship unlike any other in the school. I imminently ran out, ready to call the police, but it almost was too late. He noticed me and threw a knife, only grazing my arm. Dude, what are you... Okay, by the way, guys, I know I'm getting some fake submissions. Some of these submissions are just great stories. This one is just stupid. Went with an H could have just been an accident, right? Fine. I went to put some clothes on my son's bed, but came in and noticed the strange smell, but instead of being semen... What parent speaks like this, okay? I already know he was a gooner. Part 2 of what parent speaks like this. No one above the age of 27 ever uses the word gooner. And you imminently ran out ready to call the police. That's not how you use the word imminently. Maybe immediately. Anyway, if you're going to send me fake stories, just be prepared to be fucking clowned like this kid is. Next. This one is titled, Something Was in My Room. Once, I was just trying to fall asleep. It was about midnight when I heard this flat-sounding whistle sound. I just thought it was someone calling the dog in when it probably wasn't. After I heard the sound, I felt my bed shake, and something made 2 thumps on it as if it hit my bed. I thought it was my little brother waking me up because he needed something. So after I opened my eyes for a few seconds, I realized that it wasn't my brother looming over me, but some other figure. I couldn't see its eyes. It seemingly faded into blackness around its eyes. It had a pale white face. Its hair was black and thin. Other than these details, I couldn't make out anything else. After I registered that there was someone or something right in front of me, I immediately looked at my brother's bed to see if he was still sleeping, and then sitting up in my bed, backing away from it as fast as I could. At this point, I was really freaking out in my mind, but somehow I didn't scream or anything. I felt like if I did, I would die. So stupidly on my part, I just closed my eyes and then opened them after a few seconds, and I started fading away. And before you ask, no, I wasn't dreaming. I know this because I didn't go back to bed afterwards. My door never opened or closed. I was awake the entire night, and I just couldn't understand how someone could do that. When I thought about the possibility of being supernatural, which is crazy, I would just wonder if it was, why it never did anything except show itself. This happened about a year ago, and I haven't had anything like that happen since. Okay, this one is kind of interesting. I know you're saying this is not a dream, but there is a chance this could be a dream and you didn't realize that you woke up. because you said you close your eyes and then open them and then it faded away. I remember one time having a dream that was basically a nightmare, and then I woke up on my own, but I barely realized that I had just left the dream. The only reason I kind of figured it out is because it was so strange and so just made no sense. And I'm like, surely I was dreaming, right? But if it was something as like close to a dream as this was, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't figure it out. Sometimes this stuff does phase, like your subconscious can phase into your consciousness. But yeah, saying that you never went back to bed and this never happened before, I'm pretty sure this is a dream. That said, thank you for sharing. This one is titled, I Almost Got Kidnapped. Back when I was 13, me and my friends would sneak out my house a lot. My house has cameras and locks, but it was easy to climb out a window and hop the fence in my backyard. One night I was having a sleepover with 3 of my friends, and one of them had the idea of sneaking out and buying drugs. I grabbed some money and we climbed out the window and hopped the fence. We found someone on Snapchat to buy drugs from, and we made a meetup spot. The spot was at a park close by. We made our way to the spot and waited. After a few minutes, a van pulled up. All 4 of us had common sense, so we got up and started walking away. After a few blocks, we realized the van started following us, so we ran into a yard and hopped the fence. We kept hopping fences towards my house until we were a few streets away. When we made it to my street, we saw the van coming up the road, so we just ran towards my house. We made it inside, and we went through the front door so that the cameras could see us. In the morning, my mom yelled at us and grounded me for a year. Don't do drugs, kids. Okay, not sure if this one is real, but doing drugs at 13 is crazy. Number 2, here's the thing. Obviously, I don't condone doing drugs, but because I know motherfuckers are gonna do it, you don't just find a plug on Snapchat on a random fucking, just like through search. That's not something you do, okay? I never bought drugs myself, right? But usually, people who do this type of thing are people you know, people that you possibly even hang out with in school. Pick that kid, not some rando on the internet. Are you crazy? Buying drugs from randoms on the internet at 13? That said, stay away from drugs, kids. This one is titled Women. I once talked to a woman. It was horrifying. Okay, that one caught me off guard. That was pretty funny. This one is titled, I Survived a Night of War. I don't know if this is horrifying or spooky Halloween sort of story, but it's personally one of the most terrifying experiences of my life that I've had to grow slowly accustomed to. Some context could be helpful. I was born and raised in the UK. However, a couple of years ago, our family moved to our home country, which the West labels as quote-unquote war-torn. The first summer there was super enlightening. Getting out of the depressive weather in society was so refreshing. A completely new perspective to the world, and learning about my people and culture was super exciting. And for the most part, it was great. But one night in August, I learned what fear meant. Culturally, we have family homes where a large number of our extended family share a plot of land and live together in separate houses/apartments. One day, me and my younger brother were staying at my uncle's house on our own to have a sleepover, while the rest of our family went to stay at my mom's side of the house. While I was off with my cousins preparing to have tea and cake, my brother and male cousin were playing football with their neighborhood boys, when all of a sudden, they run inside out of breath, faces red, feet covered in dirt. We kept asking them what was wrong and what had happened, but they could barely get a word out from fear. But once they drank some water and calmed down, they explained that the soldiers from a certain militia group had marched towards the boys who were playing football. Keep in mind, this place is 2 to 3 minutes away from us, and told the boys to scat basically in that minute. And all of them ran off in different directions, barely being able to wear their slippers. Then after 5 to 10 minutes, we heard what sounded like gunshots, and for the rest of the night, I didn't sleep a wink. We were hearing constant gunshots, what sounded like distant explosions, and it seems to have been a fight broken out between 2 opposing militias. And for my fortunate experience, they were fighting on the road to my extended family's home. I do think I've forgotten some details, but from what I remember, I sort of disassociated since I've never experienced this before in my life, and I was like a stoic person, whilst my cousins who've lived through war were almost reliving their traumas and constantly on edge in fear. Social media didn't help since people were posting over exaggerated videos of what was happening and nothing was clear. At one point we had to move to one area of the house because the other side started to fill up with smoke. Then it stopped for a bit around 2 a.m. and I binge watched 2 movies on a random channel. But around 4 a.m. they started fighting again, and louder. The entire floor was shaking and I could feel it in my bones. It felt like they were right outside our doors, and there was nothing we could do. My uncles tried to seem calm, but it was such a foreign experience to us, and I was lost the entire time, and on constant survival mode. Then it calmed down again, to some distant shots, which made me relax and try to sleep around 7 a.m., but was then immediately woken up by intense shaking. In the end, when things were calmer, my dad managed to pick me up, and the rest of the neighbors also tried to flee for safety. And eventually that night, everything calmed down. I honestly crashed out once we got home, so yeah, that was my horrifying experience. Thanks for reading this, and just so you know that we are safe and fine, but this is part of our lives living in an unstable government. Damn, thank you for sharing that. That is, look, guys, this is like the reality for a lot of people around the world, okay? Things like this really do happen daily. I remember I actually made a video on this channel where I was pretty close to a gunfight that broke out when I was in Greece, and it was mob related. It wasn't like a war thing, but this is like straight up war. Some people really have to deal with this every day. I mean, right now there's plenty of wars going on, as we know in the news, and I'm sure that this is, well, I'm gonna assume that this might be one of them that is still going on to this day. Some scary stuff, man, but I'm glad you guys are okay and your family and everything, and I hope wherever you're from or whatever is going on is going to eventually end soon or has already ended. This one is called I Blew Up My Dog and I Don't Feel Bad. Wait, what? You blew up your dog? Huh? Ever since I was a kid, I've always hated animals, especially dogs. I'm not sure why I have a pure hatred for dogs specifically, but at any time I saw one, I just couldn't help but feel the need to kick and stomp on one. Well, this guy is okay. It didn't help that my sister is in love with dogs and was gifted one for her 10th birthday named Koromaru. Fast forward to high school, and I brought my girlfriend to my house since no one was home, and we'd try to do this anytime we could. However, anytime she'd show up, Koromaru would take all of the attention and would constantly sniff her hair and body. This made me sick to the core, and I knew I had to stop this as soon as possible. I decided to grab explosives that my dad had saved in the shed and went to an empty area to blow up Koromaru. I covered it up by saying I was walking him and a car ran him over. Okay, first of all, I have so many things to say about this. Number one, this feels fake. This feels like a fake story, but I'm gonna let's say for the sake of the argument that this is real, right? What kind of explosives does your dad just have in this garage? Does he just have a C4, or is he a terrorist in Counter-Strike? Does he just have straight dynamite? Like what is going on? And then part two, did your parents and sister not think to be like, oh, where did this happen or something of the sort? Like, where is the body of the dog, for one? Or did you just act like it did just completely vanish? Because if this dog was ran over, there would be blood or something on the street, right? I just don't see this being a plausible story. That being said, if this is real, what the hell is wrong with you, bro? Imagine if I didn't like you and I decided to blow you up. Like, what if I bought TNT in-game and decided, you know what? I'm going to stick this up your ass and light it on fire to blow you up. Like, what? What a horrible, horrible thing. This one is titled Abandoned House. I have a couple of friends who lived out in the country, and on the road they lived on was an abandoned 2-story house. They always joked saying they wanted to break in and see what was in it, but one time we hung out, we actually did. We went through one of the windows, the screen was already broken, so it wasn't hard to get in. There were trees surrounding the property, so even though we went in during the daytime, it was pretty dark in the house. We walked around and just snooped. There really wasn't anything in there until we got to the second floor. There were so many dead animals just all over the floor in the main bedroom of the house. At least 10 different rodents and birds scattered. So we left because it smelled awful. But a few months later, we decided to go again and brought a new friend. The animals were still there and looked the exact same. No decay, no bugs or other animals eating the carcasses. They were freakishly fresh for being there for so long in the house. We never went back after seeing that. Okay, so this is interesting because it is a good thing, by the way, that you left immediately after seeing the rodents being dead and a bunch of birds being dead. Because when there's like a certain amount of dead things, like it could be dead different types of animals, sometimes that means that there's something in the air in that area. Other times it means that it's just like some animals attacked each other or they starved or anything of the sort. But things can get pretty dicey when you see a bunch of animals dead in a specific room. Okay, things can be contaminated in some way. There could be like some weird type of chemical in the air or anything of the sort. So yeah, be careful when you're exploring abandoned places. I myself like doing that as well, but I'm very careful. I wear different types of gloves, coverings, all that stuff. I wear gas masks to understand. Like I wear like one of those like 3M gas masks with like filters and everything. So make sure if you're going into abandoned buildings, you're taking precautions, and yeah, try not to inhale mustard gas or anything. School sleepover crush story. Okay, this is not exactly looking like a scary title, but I'll bite. At the end of elementary school, we had a sleepover at school. It was kind of a farewell party. We camped at the school. A friend of mine named Kevin slept in my tent because he didn't have one. We stayed up late into the night. I had a crush, and he told me I should give her a goodbye gift. Then he convinced me to do the following. I sneaked into my crush's tent, I approached slowly, make sure she was asleep, then I bent down to her and kissed her. She kept sleeping and I sneaked back to my tent. Then we went to sleep. Alright, this is sketchy for a lot of reasons, but I'm going to keep reading. The next morning, when I woke up, most people were already awake. I stepped out of my tent and everyone was looking at me. Then a few people from my class came up to me and said things like, quote, crazy that you kissed her, end quote. At that moment, I knew Kevin had betrayed me and told everyone. I told them I didn't do it, but everyone except one friend of mine didn't believe me, since everyone knew I had a crush on her. Then my crush came to me and asked if it was true that I'd kissed her. I said I hadn't done it and that the others just made it up. I'm not sure if she believed me, but at least she didn't tell any of the teachers. Since it was the last day of school, I haven't seen her since. By the way, at the next school, Kevin was also in my class. At first, I was still angry with him, but I forgave him and we got along again. By now, however, I don't have any contact with him anymore. Okay, man, first of all, screw Kevin. Kevin is an asshole, okay? Second of all, I don't know what kind of convincing he did to, make you think that going and kissing her while she was sleeping, especially, this is not someone you're dating or anything, this is a crush, in a school tent situation is just not a good idea, man. Make sure you talk to this person first and ask them out or do something of this sort before you go kissing them in the middle of their sleep, okay? Second of all, why would you become friends with Kevin again after he straight up betrayed you in the worst possible way, made you look like a complete ass at the end of the year to all these kids that you probably are going to see again in whatever next version of school? Like, this kid is a piece of garbage. I pray on Kevin's downfall wherever he is to this day. Like, I'm glad you're not talking to him anymore, but he really did not deserve to be your friend. Anyway, moral of the story is this was obviously a mistake made by someone who had a big crush and was coerced by a very shitty friend. So, whatever. But at the same time, I feel like at this point, man, you should have just confessed to her and been like, yeah, you know what? I did do it. It was a dumb thing, but I really like you. And she might have thought it was cute, or she might have thought it was very creepy and you would have gotten in trouble. But I don't know. I really don't know what the best way to go about this is, considering. But thank you for sharing regardless. This one is titled, I Beat Up an Autistic Kid. All right, I can't imagine where this is going. I'm a male, 17 years old. I remember this incident up till today. So when I was like 9 or 10 in school, I had this classmate. He was weird, to say the least. Not the class clown, constantly disrupting the lesson kind, but more peculiar. He permanently had this giant toothy smile plastered across his face, wore these blue, rubbery glasses, even when he was chided by teachers for not handing in his homework on time. The smile never went away. It was unsettling, but frankly, no one was scared because he was kind of a douche and pretty easy to rage bait, although his expression wouldn't change. He'd go around any pair of boy girlfriends and start singing the Kissing on a Tree song while dancing like those monkeys from a cartoon. He never had an inside voice, so this would always be at the top of his lungs. He had zero friends as a result of this behavior, of course. Despite the fact I'd been tormented by him before, I still pitied him. I knew what it was like to not have any friends, so I never outright insulted him like the others did. Rather, I just replied with, quote, go away please, end quote. This, however, changed. I had to use the bathroom. Our school was 6 levels high, so some places were interconnected with small square bridges with metal hand railings. The bathroom was on the other side. Approaching the lavatory, I saw 2 random guys turn out the lights. Weird. Don't they know other people use the toilet? I thought to myself. They giggled and quickly ran by me, not even taking notice of my presence. As I was about to turn the lights on, that classmate burst out the door. Now it adds up. They were pranking his I said, quote, you okay? It must have been quite scary. And before I could finish my sentence, he screamed, you turned off the lights! I'm telling teacher! I said, wait, hold on. The guys just left. And he said, liar, liar, pants on fire. In a swift motion, he swiped his hand to my face. He hadn't cut his nails and left a scratch on my face. He cackled, still with that damn smile on his face. Quote, it hurts, right? Right? End quote. He blew a raspberry and danced off the other way. I don't want to sound corny, but I straight up fucking lost it with him. I've been the only one to tolerate his antics, told my friends to lay off him, and was just about to tell him about the real culprits. So I let out my anger. I've always been a quick runner, and when he was only halfway across the bridge, I ran up in front of him and socked him in the jaw. But that wasn't enough for me. I grabbed his glasses and swiped them off his face, tossing them to the floor, ensuring they didn't crack. If I wanted to do this, I was going to leave as little evidence as possible. Couldn't let those get in the way. I began the beatdown. Another punch to the gut, a bitch slap to the face, and another barrage of punches before shoving him to the floor. He tried escaping, but I tackled him, my hand at the back of his head, saying, quote, "I'm not done with you," end quote. I shoved him into the railings. I grabbed his head and dragged his face across the bar. He screamed. I grinned. I shoved him, and he sprawled onto the floor. Grabbing his shin, I grinned again. No visible nosebleeds or injuries. Not even a little dirt. But his expression, that smile, was gone. Instead, his face was contorted into fear. He was scared, frightened, a face that screamed, "Get the hell away from me." The first time I'd ever seen him cry. Squatting next to him, I growled, "If you ever mention a word of this to any teacher, I will hurt you again. Another beating. If I'm punished, you'll get 10 times worse from me. Got it?" He nodded. I picked up his glasses and tossed them to him. I told him to put these on, go back to the toilet, and wash your face. Stay until those tear stains have gone away. Scrambling to his feet, he ran off to the toilet. Not in the mood, I went down a floor to use that toilet instead. But I kept thinking back to the beatdown. He couldn't even fight back. The adrenaline, the rush of just hurting him. Just letting loose. It was euphoric. Opening the door, I looked into the mirror and I looked dead into my eyes. I couldn't help it. I laughed. It was the greatest high I've ever felt. Hell, I was itching to get into another fight with anyone as long as I could feel that rush again. But I calmed down and was horrified at those thoughts. I didn't know I could be that angry. I went back to class. He was already there, in his seat, the smile gone from his face. The school found out and naturally I was punished. I always knew that karma would catch up to me. Thankfully, they'd managed to get the 2 other culprits as well, and I'd managed to hide the full beatdown as just a punch. It helped that he was too scared to say anything apart from that. Later, it was revealed that he had autism, and I should be more patient with him. I didn't need to, considering we never interacted again after that. But ever since then, when anyone pisses me off, I always get this tick. I start imagining beating them down. The visions got more brutal. Beheading, dismembering, and the same expression on their faces as him. Finally scared. Finally respecting me. Feeling the rush of the fight. But I am disgusted. Disgusted I would even think that. To this day, I have never laid my hands on another. But I have been practicing Shito-Ryu karate to vent my frustrations. The most horrifying story of my life is this. The day I discovered I'm a monster. All right, there's a lot to unpack here, but number one, I don't think you're a monster, okay? We'll get back to that, but let's start with the obvious thing. I don't think that what you did was necessarily wrong. You might have gone a bit overboard. It might have snapped a bit, and that's something that happens. It's unfortunate. But you didn't know that this kid had autism. And let's be honest here. He's straight rage baiting you. He slapped you and scratched your face. Based on what you're describing, you're one of the few people that didn't clown on him for his behavior. And now you're the one that is getting the shit end of the stick. So you snapped. And you went a bit overboard. Maybe like socking him in his face and being like, "Get the hell away from me," would have sufficed. But this should serve as a lesson in general for people. Just because you have a condition, say it's autism, just because you have some bad day, just because something is going on, that is not going to excuse you from your actions having consequences. I had this kid in my school who, I don't know if he had autism, I don't know if he had whatever issues at home, whatever his deal was, who was a complete bully. And then one day he attempted to punch me, and I straight up grabbed him by the throat and pushed him onto a wall. And it was like, do that again, and you're dead. Like, whatever is going on with you is not my problem. But you do need to figure out how to act accordingly in society. That's just how it is. Now, in this particular case, it sounds like the kid that was beat up here wasn't aware of his condition, or his parents weren't aware of his condition, so it's a very different situation. I'm not saying that he deserved it. I'm not saying that he should have been beat up by the person who submitted this, but it makes sense that he did. You know what I'm saying? So, that being said, could you have been less explosive about how this went on? Probably. Now, as far as the fact of you feeling really good about it after the fact and feeling this rush and the adrenaline and the fact that you won and he submitted to you and did what you wanted him to do, yeah, that's the primal instinct of being the alpha of the situation or whatever you want to call it. It's kind of just like, oh, I have power. Humans are very well known for loving power, okay? We all do. We all crave some version of power in our lives. That's why you always see power struggles in every version of life. You see it in the popular group in high school. You see it in teachers who don't have any power outside in their external life trying to enforce their power really hard in school. All humans have this. This is just the thing. The problematic part only really arises when you're like, oh, I'm craving this high so much that I want to, make this happen again. It doesn't really matter to me. I just want to get in a fight. That is the issue. That's where you kind of have to draw the line and say, okay, let me calm down a bit. I need to figure out how to deal with this. and you did find a way to deal with it. You do karate. So you take out your anger in karate, and you have a more healthy relationship with that release of that anger, that just what's inside of you. Because the other thing about this is that it's not only based on what happened with that kid. That same release could have came from a lot of different places. But it has to do with you internally and what you're possibly angry about. Like, I remember there were a lot of times where I wanted to absolutely fight someone for no reason because I was just so angry. I just wanted the release of that just anger and that energy. In a lot of cases, going to the gym helps with that. Using a punching bag instead of a person had helped with that. So I understand how you feel. And basically what I'm trying to say is you're not a monster. You're a human that has human emotions and human reactions to things when events like these happen. And as long as you haven't hurt anyone deliberately or just tried to get in a fight with someone for absolutely no reason and you're dealing with this need for that high, then I think you're perfectly normal and fine. But thank you for sharing. And actually do tell me whatever happened to that kid. I'm curious to see if his behavior changed after you got in that fight. And I'm curious to see after they diagnosed him how he changed overall. So let me know in the comments if you can. This next one is called The Man in the Ceiling. My freshman year of college, I lived in a double dorm with a private bathroom. Our ceiling was a square tile as you'd see at school. At the time, we had a pretty bad problem with homeless people trying to break into the dorms. One day, I came back to my dorm, and as I walked in, I saw the tile right above the front door had been moved and was now only covering half the opening. I put it back in place and didn't think much of it. It was known that people would leave offerings in the ceiling for the next set of people who move into their dorm. However, that night, my roommate and I heard some funky sounds coming from the same area. We ended up deciding it was people running in the halls and went to bed. 2 days later, I was talking with a friend who lived a few floors above, and she mentioned her ceiling tile being half opened in her room. That same day, my roommate texted me asking why a bunch of our things were moved around in the bathroom. I hadn't been back all day, and she left after me that morning. This continued to happen for a week, without seeing the ceiling tile moved at all. Things would go missing in our room and turn up somewhere random. The final night, we were both in bed yapping, and we heard a thump. I looked towards the noise, and the ceiling tile by the door was opening and closing, like someone was trying to open it but kept losing their grip. Once my roommate noticed, we started freaking out. Trying to be as quiet as possible, we discussed staying somewhere else for the night. I ended up sleeping on the floor under my friend's lofted bed, who lived a few floors up. I did leave my keys in my room, so I did have to go ask the front desk for a key at 4:30 a.m. with a pillow and stuffed animal in my hand. Since I had work at 5 a.m. the next morning, and it was around 11 p.m. at the time, my roommate called campus police, and we got the whole thing taken care of. She went home as she didn't live far. My roommate later told me that the police found nothing up there, and the security cameras were clean. After that night, nothing strange happened again. If what you're saying with the homeless people that are actually trying to get into the dorms, there's a very high possibility that there was someone in those roof tiles, okay? That there was someone hiding and lurking around there, possibly stealing things, possibly going in rooms and looking around. If they're homeless, it could be food. They might be looking for absolutely anything just to steal something. That's just quite scary to think about, especially as a woman for obvious reasons. So I'm glad that this didn't end up being something 10 times worse. But thanks for sharing. This one is titled, My School Covered Up a Crazy Situation. My entire life, I've gone to a crazy small school. Whole thing has probably about 150 kids in it, and my class was really small. And was the same group of kids for about 7 years straight, including having the same teachers. No one really ever left or came, as Catholic schools have been at an all-time low recently. But my 7th grade year, our teacher randomly left us a month into school. I was heartbroken because she was one of the only female teachers, and I always felt more comfortable around other women. Our principal had to take over teaching us until we got a new teacher, which was actually pretty quick. And we had a new teacher in about 2 weeks. He was a male, which was fine, but I was always suspicious of male teachers because of internet stories, and it got me nervous. He was really chill and super nice though, so it calmed me down pretty quickly. He ended up turning weird about a month into teaching though, and would constantly sit on my desk and other girls. My class was really small. There were only 3 girls, and he had put us all in the front row, right next to his desk. This, along with the comments, quickly caused my entire class to be suspicious. We had all grown up together, so we really cared for each other like family. And it turned into a weird thing where if the teacher had asked for one of the girls to be alone with him, one of the boys would volunteer to stay outside the room. Nothing ever happened, until something did. He asked me to stay in his room while my class went down for lunch. This coming out of nowhere caused my entire class to stay outside the door. He asked me if I was nervous, and I said yes, and that I had medication for my anxiety. I didn't understand his question until he started asking me if he made me nervous. I said no, and then he proceeded to turn his computer and pull images of me on my mom's Facebook and other random girls in his gallery. Some were only in their underwear and were probably about my age, maybe a little bit older. He asked if I wanted to help add to his collection or if he knew if any of my friends would want to. I didn't say anything and just stood silently in front of the smartboard. Luckily, because of my classmates staying outside the room, they had seen everything and got another teacher. By the time a teacher arrived, everything was already off the smartboard, and my principal ended up claiming my entire class was lying just to get rid of the teacher, and that we never liked him from the start. He never got scolded, and I was given a 2-day out of class, which basically means you're allowed to sit in on another teacher of your choosing's class for 2 days, because I was so shocked. This whole situation made me go mute for a little while, and I ended up really fearing men and even just adults for a good amount of time after. Looking back, I really should have argued about this, but I ended up not giving anything for the teachers to work with, so they didn't see a reason and thought I had just been caught in a lie. Man, I'm so sorry that this happened to you. It seems like this pattern of creepy teachers just doesn't seem to end. Like, what is wrong with everyone, man? Just leave the kids alone. I'm so glad that you guys had a good set of classmates and friends to protect you in these situations and deal with stuff like that as a group, because this is, like, what do you do here? How are you the principal of the school and not seeing the problem here? There's no way a whole class of students is going to say that this teacher is weird and creepy when he's not actually weird and creepy. Because under normal circumstances, there's always one person who likes the teacher, okay? There's always one person who's going to not be part of the pack with that stuff because they want to be the teacher's pet. There's always one, at least. And, like, the proof of this was when I was back in middle school. There was a couple of times where the entire school decided, you know what, we're going to ditch school today. The entire school. And no matter what, every time that this happened, there were three kids in my class that would stay behind no matter what and mess up the fun. And we all got like double the consequences because those three would stay back. That said, we also had a creepy teacher that everyone hated and everyone agreed that he sucked. Even those three kids, right? Even the person who was the best in the class in every subject hated this guy. So when everyone, literally 100% of the population of your class is saying, this guy's a creep, principals and other teachers, please believe your students because they probably are right. This one is called the tarantula. In school, when I was in the 3rd or 4th grade, we had this climbing rope tower thingy that was called the tarantula. Probably about 3 meters high or so. My friends and I would climb up to the top and jump off, because of course we did. One time when we were sitting at the top, a boy I didn't like too much wanted to join us sitting at the top and talking. And he also wanted to try and jump off the top like we did, but was too scared. Long story short, when he got to the edge, I pushed him, made him lose his balance, and he hit the ground, breaking his arm. He claimed to the teachers someone pushed him while in tears, but no one confessed to pushing him off, and teachers deemed it as a quote-unquote accident. To this day, no one knows who was at fault. What the fuck? Why would you do that? What? There's levels of doing things to people, right? Pushing someone off a ledge is crazy, okay? I mean, this isn't not really even a scary story for you. It's more scary for the poor kid that fell off this ledge. You're an asshole. This one is titled, Is This Luck or a Miracle? One day, me and my family were on a road trip. All was good the whole day until it was time to drive back home. It was 9 p.m. and I was just looking out the window because I love to just daydream and look out the window. I noticed a bright orange semi-truck with a trailer, and with my head turned back, I just stared at it for a bit. When I finally had enough, I looked forward again. And guess what? The semi-truck was overtaking us, and in a matter of seconds, it started to go in our lane and cut us off. It started pushing us to the right, and we were so fucking lucky that there was a pull-off right there. After we managed to stop the car, there was minimal damage to the driver's side doors. The truck could have easily ripped apart our car and injured us, but it didn't because we had a place to pull off at. I can't even begin to say how lucky we were in that moment. I should say no one was hurt, truck pulled over, and we exchanged insurance and went home after about 2 hours. Every time I drive on that road, I get flashbacks, and it's scary how it's burnt into my memory. Dude, I had something so similar happen to me. I was in a car with a couple of my friends one day, and we were going to New York City or something, and we were on this, like, weird lane-splitting shoulder thing. We were against the wall of this, like, underpass road thing, and there was also a truck on our immediate right. And we were actually in between the main truck cabin and the trailer it was carrying. And the truck started turning into our lane with the trailer basically starting to hover us. If we didn't start aggressively beeping this guy, he would have completely crushed us in that moment. Like, that was insane. Luckily, we were pretty much at dead stop traffic. We weren't going fast, but when he started moving in our lane, it was pretty obvious that he didn't realize we were there. So, yeah. Trucks are dangerous, man. This one is titled, I Thought I Killed My Friend. When I was 16, my school went on a multi-day field trip to different cities. On the first night, they let us go out and have some fun. So naturally, my friends and I started drinking. It was really my first time drinking, so we drank a little too much. We barely found our way back to our hotel, and we were so loud that I'm surprised nobody said anything. Long story short, when me and my friend got to our rooms, my friend and I started pushing each other for fun, but I pushed him a little too hard. Thankfully, he fell into the bed, so I didn't think too much of it. I went into another room to change my clothes, and then when I came back, he was in the same position I'd left him in. I tried to wake him up, but he wasn't moving. He was breathing, just not moving. I got so scared. Later on, our other friend that we had been drinking with came back, and I told him what had happened. We both started panicking. It was genuinely horrifying, but I was too scared to tell the teachers. A few hours later, he woke up with a severe headache. I was so relieved to find out that he had only blacked out. Okay, dude, that is really scary, but just as a general rule of thumb for anyone with friends that have been intoxicated and are drinking too much, especially if it's like around your first few times drinking, if you have an adult present in a situation like this, tell the adult, because I promise you, it is not worth to have someone potentially die so that you don't get in trouble afterwards, okay? Leaving him there for a few hours is crazy. He could have very well needed his stomach pumped, so you don't really know what the situation is. The one thing in this case, he was breathing and you knew he was breathing, but that in and of itself is not always the only vital sign you need to make sure that he's okay. But yeah, trust me, I've had to take care of my fair share of drunk friends. None of them, luckily, were ever this intoxicated to pass out for hours without waking up. But yeah, fun times. This one is titled Intruder. This story didn't happen to me, but to a friend. It happened near the end of the second semester of 8th grade. During school, my friend, I think his name was Devin, I can't remember. Devin would always be tired during school, since it was at 7 in the morning, or kids would be staying up late to play COD or something like that. But Devin wasn't that type of kid though. He was always a good kid, not the type to break rules or sneak out. I remember asking him about it something like, "Why are you so tired?" or "Why are you tired?" He told me from what I can remember that he would always wake up in the middle of the night, not to go to the bathroom, or not because he was thirsty, or because he was hungry. He would always feel the sense of being watched, which was weird because he told me he would always look around only to find nothing. I told him something like, "You're being paranoid," or something along those lines. It kept happening for a few days, so he told his parents about how it was affecting his school life, and so his parents installed cameras by the bed for comfort, kind of like a nanny cam. When he went to bed that night, at first it caught nothing, until like the middle of the night when the camera caught a guy in all black looking around and stealing small things like change or leftover food, which was gross. Every time Devin would wake up, the man would creep back into the dark hallway leading to his bedroom and stand there and wait for Devin to fall asleep and leave through his window. His parents called the cops in the morning and the guy got arrested, which was horrifying to think about. Dude, that is, oh my god. Imagine just like thinking you're being haunted as a kid and then it's literally a guy in your house. You could possibly be telling your parents and they're like, "Okay, I think you're probably just overreacting." No, it was quite literally just a home intruder that is just, I don't know, stealing food and stuff or whatever you're saying. Scary stuff, man. But anyway, I think that is where we should end it. Thank you all so much for submitting your stories. Thank you so much for participating in these videos. Now for the next video, I want you guys to submit your worst date experience. Can be a first date, can be a date like a year into the relationship, anything you want. So the form for that will be in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching once again. And as always, good night and good luck, everybody.